celebrating 20 years since the horrendous national disaster of the King's Cross fire, which took the lives of 31 people. Another chance to see the survivors' tales. That's after tonight's ITV Evening News with Mark Austin.
It's confirmed the most virulent form of bird flu is back in Britain. The strain found on a farm in Suffolk is H5N1. Tonight, halting the virus as much of East Anglia becomes a restricted zone. The outbreak is being linked to cases in the Czech Republic and Germany. Wild birds seem the likeliest source. We investigate how difficult it will be to contain. Also on the programme. Family tragedy. A couple and 3 of their children are killed in a house fire. 2 more of their children are missing.
I felt sick just at the thought of it. The fact that there's wee children and get out.
Raising the stakes, Benazir Bhutto calls on Musharraf to quit as her protest march is thwarted by police. And the reverse ripple effect. We reveal where house prices are falling fastest. Good evening. The worst kind of bird flu is back in Britain. The virus found at a turkey farm in Suffolk was confirmed today as the deadly H5N1 strain. Government scientists believe it may have come from the Czech Republic or Germany, but they aren't sure how it got here. Wild birds, maybe. Today at the farm, it's 5,000 free-range turkeys, 1,000 ducks and 500 geese were all slaughtered. Paul Davis is there tonight.
It was, of course, bad enough for this poultry farm to discover it's been stricken with bird flu. That news in itself has been a death sentence for more than 6,000 birds today. Now we know that the strain of the disease is the deadliest variety. It's news that's left dozens of other farmers wondering whether it will be their turn next, and we are expecting more culling in this district within the next 24 hours.
Viewed from a distance, the pens where turkeys stricken with this dangerous strain of avian flu await their fate. Some are herded into the low building where they'll be gassed. Others are already dead, killed by this highly contagious disease. A long and difficult day for this poultry farm began with the arrival of the heavy lifting equipment and, of course, the gas that would be needed to dispose of thousands of affected birds. Police kept all those not needed for the culling away, while the government confirmed this was a strain of the disease that has in rare cases spread to humankind.
I can now confirm that the strain of avian influenza present on the infected premises is highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1 strain.
After vets and government scientists had overseen the slaughter, the carcasses were loaded into sealed containers. The arrival of this strain is bad enough. All emphasis now is on preventing its spread. But imposing controls on the movement of some potential carriers of the disease is practically impossible. The potential for bird flu being carried here by wildfowl is obvious. This lake borders on to the infected turkey farm, and all day we've been watching the comings and goings of wild ducks, geese and swans. Tonight, the company running the farm assured the public none of its turkeys had entered the food chain.
GA Topham is a seasonal farm preparing birds for Christmas. As such, no birds from the farm have been slaughtered for food or sent to customers.
At the end of a grim day, the turkey sheds are now empty, but government officials predict more culling will be needed at other farms in the area if they're to have any chance of stopping the spread of the disease. Paul Davis, ITV News, Redgrave, Suffolk.
The measures to try to stop the virus spreading were in place last night before today's confirmation that it was the HN51 strain. But the acting chief vet said today that containing and eliminating this outbreak would not be a quick exercise. When bird flu was detected in February on the Bernard Matthews farm, 27 miles from this latest outbreak, it was quickly brought under control. It was thought to have arrived in infected turkey meat from Hungary. Nearly 160,000 birds were culled. Bernard Matthews had their own incinerators. Operations there resumed in 2 weeks. But will it be so containable this time? Vets think there may be an Eastern Europe connection again, but this time perhaps from wild birds flying in on their autumn migration from the Czech Republic or Germany. The farm's turkeys, all free range, have been slaughtered. Poultry at nearby farms must be kept inside to keep them away from wild birds. Farmers must keep checking for signs of the virus. Even so, DEFRA may decide in the next 36 hours to cull birds on neighbouring farms as a preventative measure.
The virus itself doesn't spread very, very quickly. It doesn't spread on the wind like foot and mouth does. It doesn't spread in the water. It's basically, close contact between birds that spreads it. And basically you can stop that by all these measures which have been put in place.
The Farmers' Union says Christmas supplies of turkeys will not be affected by the outbreak as it stands. There are 20 million turkeys reared in Britain each year, 10 million for Christmas. Around 3 million in Suffolk and Norfolk. They can't be moved out of the restriction zone, but they can be slaughtered for the dinner table, unless things change and the virus spreads. 5 children and their parents are believed to have died in Northern Ireland's worst ever house fire. The oldest of the children was 13, the youngest 9 months. The family's neighbours in Omagh desperately tried to rescue them. They could see them through the window, but the flames forced them back. Police are investigating whether it was started deliberately. Neil Connery is there this evening. Neil.
Yes, Mark, the remains of this end of terrace house destroyed by this fire just a short distance behind me here tonight. Neighbours I've been speaking to during the day, some of whom understandably are just too shocked to talk on camera, told me about the screams they heard coming from that house in the early hours as they and fire crews did everything they could to rescue this family of 7 trapped inside, but it was not to be. Tonight, some of those fire crews are still here working to remove the remains of those whose lives were claimed. This is the family whose lives were taken by the fire which destroyed their home. Lorraine McGovern cradles her youngest 9-month-old James in her arms. Caroline was the eldest, aged 13. Belina was 4. Sean was 7 and preparing for his first Holy Communion. Clodagh was just 19 months old. And Arthur, a proud father of a happy family. The blackened remains of Forlammy Crescent speak of a tragedy which has destroyed a family. 5 children, the youngest just 9 months old, and their parents are feared to have lost their lives in the fire. The frame of a child's bunk bed lies twisted from the heat. Sharon Coyle's son Dara was a classmate of one of the victims. The message on his flowers read, "To my friend Sean, who is up with the angels."
I felt sick just at the thought of it. To think that there's wee children and they couldn't get out, and neighbours had tried but couldn't do nothing. It's hard. It's very hard to believe. Very hard. It's a tragedy.
The fire started just before 5 o'clock this morning, and as neighbours raised the alarm, some rushed to help, hearing screams coming from inside the house. They managed to get a ladder up to one of those windows, but those trapped inside were unable to reach it. Such was the intensity of the blaze. Fire crews are still trying to establish the cause. They say they did everything they could to rescue the family.
Our fire crews, despite the intensity of the fire, made an immediate entry into the building using breathing apparatus, but unfortunately were unable to rescue anybody in the house.
The local priest spoke of the community's shock.
Just to think that a whole family has been wiped out. It's certainly the worst and the first experience that I had of this enormity. We would have come across tragedy before, but certainly nothing on this scale.
As the investigation continues, people here are mourning the loss of a much-loved family. Neil Connery, ITV News, Omagh.
Penned in behind barbed wire thrown up around her house, the former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto lashed out today at the country's president. She told General Musharraf he must resign. There had once been talk of them sharing power. Her home has been surrounded by troops to stop her leading a big protest against the president's emergency rule. From Pakistan, our correspondent John Ray.
They came to answer their leader's call to march for democracy. Instead, they were confronted by riot police on the charge. Their day ended in panic and retreat. But Benazir Bhutto is defiant, and tonight she is raising the stakes.
All over the country, everybody is against him and he's not listening to it.
General Musharraf has put Pakistan under martial law, but it is not under control. Elections just 2 months away are already being fought by stone-throwing opponents and countered by tear gas. Through all this, Ms Bhutto spent the day under house arrest. Those supporters who came close sacrificed their freedom. Street theatre with a photo call finale.
Well, so far the long march for democracy has barely taken more than a few steps, and each time only as far as the back of a waiting police van.
But behind the scenes, serious drama. The plan to share power with the president is out. Now, Ms Bhutto told me, it's a showdown.
I would ask General Musharraf to hear the beat of the people who are marching, to hear the message of the marchers. The message is to end martial law. The message is for General Musharraf to quit and leave. And the message is to return Pakistan, which belongs to the people, back to the people.
Tonight, the president's response: democracy is not his priority.
If the country is going down and becoming a failed state, is arresting that more important, or running a democratic system, so-called democratic system, more important? Which one is more important? Obviously, save the government, save the nation.
The danger for Pakistan, that it will have neither democracy nor stability. John Ray, ITV News, Lahore.
Right, still to come on the programme tonight, house prices fall at their fastest rate for more than 2 years. And some of ancient Egypt's greatest treasures make a rare appearance in Britain. I've been to take a look. But first, the Home Secretary didn't deny it. Jackie Smith told MPs she did know in July that illegal immigrants had been wrongly cleared to work as security guards. The actual figure was 5,000. She said she wanted to establish the scale of the problem before releasing potentially misleading information. The Conservatives accused her of a cover-up. Our political editor Tom Bradby reports.
He didn't, like his predecessor, quite say he'd be whiter than white, but Gordon Brown did promise an end to the culture of spin. Today was all about another mess-up at the Home Office, but let's face it, that's hardly news anymore, is it? No, what is particularly damaging is the idea the Home Secretary chose quite deliberately not to share a serious problem with the rest of us.
When the current Prime Minister became leader of the Labour Party, he heralded, in his words, a different type of politics, a more open and honest dialogue, frank about problems, candid about dilemmas, never losing touch with the concerns of the people.
But leaked emails showed, he said, that the Home Secretary knew quite clearly as far back as July that thousands of illegal immigrants, in fact as many as 5,000, an incredible number when you stop to think about it, had got potentially sensitive security jobs. And yet when did we find out? This morning, and only then through a leak.
I don't make any apologies to this House, Mr. Speaker, for being the sort of minister whose first reaction to an issue is not what should I say about it, but in fact is what should I do about it.
But the leaked emails show clearly she knew of the problem earlier in the summer. One from her private secretary to officials says she agrees with you that this is not ready for public announcement yet. She did not think the lines, essentially that means the defence, we have are good enough for press office or ministers to use. Another, 3 weeks later, written by a senior official, warns if the issue is made public, there will be significant criticism of the Home Office. They are likely to refer back to other Home Office so-called blunders which adversely affected coverage of the department last year and earlier this. Jackie Smith's defence is that this issue was frankly better resolved without the glare of publicity. Well, maybe, but the trouble is, immigration and spin at this time for this government is a potent and not particularly healthy combination. Tom Bradby, ITV News, at the Home Office.
The first doctor at the scene of the crash which killed Princess Diana said he thought she would survive. Dr. Frederick Maillet, seen here in white, told the inquest into the princess's death how she was unconscious and breathing weakly, but he said she didn't show signs of having a serious head injury. Alcohol is too cheap and too easy to get hold of, the report said today, so no wonder Britain has a drink problem. The Nuffield Council says the government must do more. Increasing the tax on alcohol and restricting the hours it is on sale would help. Our chief political correspondent Daisy McAndrew has been hearing just how big the problem is.
I'm not a sociologist and I'm not a professional expert in anything, but it seems obvious to me that something has gone very, very wrong.
Peter says he's a typical result of Britain's booze culture.
Alcohol got me. It took 39 years to do it, but in the end I needed a liver transplant. And to be honest with you, I'm very lucky to be here.
The latest report says our drinking is a huge problem that the government's failing to address. And instead of the wagging finger of the nanny state, we should have tougher so-called stewardship measures.
So if the government does have a duty to look after our health, how can they stop us drinking so much? Should they restrict our access to cheap booze, maybe by tightening the licensing laws up again, or by making it more expensive by putting taxes up?
Well, the Nuffield Council's review of health policy has concluded now is the time for state intervention.
In relation to opening hours, the Council thinks that it's time to revisit the question. In relation to taxation, the pricing of alcohol, again, we need to look hard at the possibility of increasing the price of alcohol to the consumer.
But some think the problems and solutions are less fiscal and more cultural.
They're calling for a £1.4 billion consumer tax hike. We think that's misguided. We think that the evidence from around Europe suggests that actually this country has a problem with cultural drinking, and that's about people drinking to get drunk. And what we need to do is educate consumers, explain to young people what a sensible level of drinking is, and take it from there.
But the politicians have tried education. Is it time for another tack?
There are issues around discounted alcohol pricing, happy hours, loss leaders, and who exactly they might be selling to. And we're already got independent research working, looking at these issues, saying, is there a connection between discounted price and the harm caused by alcohol?
But there are few votes in turning happy hours into expensive hours, and they'll be wary of draconian measures becoming their very own loss leaders. Daisy McAndrew, ITV News.
The housing boom is officially over. Two reports say not only are prices falling, but they have been for a few months. Of course, some places are affected more or less than others. They're calling it the reverse ripple. Areas where prices rose least and last are now the first to see them fall. Our business correspondent Mark Edo reports.
As safe as houses, or at least they used to be until house prices started falling. Across the country, confidence in the housing market is deteriorating, with prices falling first in areas the property boom reached last. Experts say it's the reverse ripple effect. Things already feel different in Bradford. Prices here fell again in September, not by much, but they did fall. Local estate agents remember when the ripple of price rises travelled from London in the 1980s and transformed the market.
Hello.
Now the reverse is happening.
Realism is very much the order of the day. As I say, you cannot picture a property at an optimistic price and expect to get away with it. There are still plenty of folk out there wanting to buy. I think they're biding the time now, waiting for the stock in the new year. I think we should take a reasonably cautious but positive outlook.
But it's hard to stay positive when you look at the figures. In the West Midlands, prices fell by 0.7% in September. The East Midlands saw a drop of 0.2%. And in the South East and the South West, house prices fell by 0.3%. Wales has been hit the hardest. Lots of areas have seen prices fall. some by as much as 2%. Then travel south to London, and prices are holding up, but things are changing. James wishes he'd sold his flat overlooking the Thames 6 months ago. Now estate agents have told him to drop his asking price.
I think I've probably left it too late, because 6 months down the line, I'm now being told that I'm going to have to lower my asking price, and it's going to take a lot longer and be a lot harder work to sell.
And now even surveyors say the UK housing market is softening. In October, 22% more surveyors than before reported a dip in prices in their areas. In places like West Yorkshire, there's something of a standoff. Sellers who are not used to budging on price are holding tight for now, and buyers can sense there might be a bargain in the future. All the while, all the signs point to a fall in house prices. Mark Edo, ITV News in West Yorkshire.
And there's some grim news on inflation tonight. An unexpected jump last month because of higher petrol and food bills. It reached 2.1% in October, a rise of nearly 1/3 of 1% and above the government's target. On the markets, the FTSE closed at 6,362. That is up 24 points. And in America, the Dow ended at 13,307, a leap of 319 points. Now, last time he played London, he pulled in crowds of well over 1 million. That was 35 years ago. Now, at London's newest rock venue, the O2, he's set for a comeback and a sellout all over again. Glittering treasures from the tomb of the Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun are about to be put on show there in the mummy of all exhibitions. I went along to marvel at it for myself.
It is truly a treasure trove to fire the imagination, a collection that feeds our fascination with ancient Egypt and the pharaohs, and in particular the story of the boy king who ruled more than 30 centuries ago. There is so much here: Tutankhamun's crown, never seen in Britain before, and his ceremonial daggers found on the mummy of the king. And what seemed so extraordinary to me was the condition of it all. This is the treasure the tomb raiders spared. It was all found 85 years ago by the great archaeologist Howard Carter, who, funded by Lord Carnarvon, never gave up his hunt for the tomb. On his last dig, he struck gold. Everywhere the glint of gold, he said. I see wonderful things.
And you know what? Down here in the darkness, you just get the tiniest sense of what it must have been like for Howard Carter when he peered into that tomb for the first time and saw the treasure that had been undiscovered and undisturbed for some 3,000 years. It really is quite remarkable.
To this day, it's the most intact, most beautiful tomb with the most objects of any of the ancient Egyptian tombs. We have this fascination with ancient Egypt to begin with, but this insignificant king probably would have got lost in the pages of history if it wasn't for this discovery, is now the king that we talk about.
Last week, the face of the boy king was unveiled for the first time, a captivating moment, but the mummy itself hasn't come to London and probably never will. In 1972, a Tutankhamun exhibition here attracted 1.5 million people. Now the most famous burial treasures in the world are back to enthrall another generation.
A reminder now of our main news tonight. Tests at a farm in Suffolk have confirmed turkeys there had the most lethal form of bird flu. Its flocks were slaughtered today. More cullings expected on nearby farms tomorrow. On to tomorrow's papers, and that story makes the front page of the Times. The paper reports fears that if the virus takes hold, the £400 million market for Christmas birds will be lost. The Daily Mail also reports on those concerns ahead of the Christmas season. The paper says the virus is threatening devastation at the heart of the British poultry industry. A photograph of Omar's lost family fills the front page of tomorrow's Belfast Telegraph. It says friends and neighbours openly wept outside the burnt shell of the family home. And The Guardian says taxpayers will lose out to the tune of £2 billion if the Northern Rock Bank is sold. It says bidders want the government to waive a £2 billion interest bill on the outstanding £20 billion loan. There we are, those are tomorrow's headlines. That was tonight's news. Coming up next on ITV1 after the national weather, the news from your part of the UK. But from me, thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
The ITV National Weather is sponsored by E.ON, the energy behind power gen.
Hello, good evening. Cloudy skies and outbreaks of rain in the west tomorrow. Some showery bits of rain for the rest of us too, but hopefully skies will get a bit brighter through the day. Sunny spells for most by the afternoon. Overnight tonight, the cloud and rain is mostly up in the north and west, misty on the hills too. A few showers further east, but central parts of Britain, the Midlands, central southern England, drier and colder tonight. That's where temperatures will get down to around 2 or 3. Could be a touch of ground frost around. And then tomorrow the rain will start off in the north and west, Scotland, Northern Ireland. It'll drift further south through the day across Wales and the West Country as well. Further east, fairly cloudy start for us too, but there will be some sunny spells developing through the day, so not too bad a story there. But temperatures everywhere struggling, single figures for most, around 9.
The ITV National Weather is sponsored by E.ON, the energy behind power gen.
Hello, you're watching Central News for the East Midlands. Our top story tonight. A man's been arrested after 3 migrant workers were killed in a head-on crash in Lincolnshire. Also tonight, the families of 2 best friends killed on a sailing trip say they died doing the thing they loved most. And we meet the Leicester students with the X Factor. They've been impressing their friends in their very own auditions. Good evening. 3 foreign workers have been killed in a head-on crash involving 3 minibuses and a car in Lincolnshire. It's not the first time migrant workers have died on our roads in similar circumstances. Today's crash happened on the A52 near Skegness. 7 other people were injured. Tonight, one of them, a 43-year-old man, was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. He'll be interviewed once he's released from hospital. Barrett Patel reports.
The rural roads of Lincolnshire are amongst the most dangerous in Britain, and today the death toll reached 72 for the year. 3 migrant workers were killed just after 7 o'clock this morning when 3 minibuses and a car crashed at Croft Bank on the A52 near Skegness.
They are foreign workers, and obviously, you know, we are using interpreters to establish their identity and where they live, where they're working, and actually what they saw.
What is significant is that at that time of the morning we do have a high proportion of foreign nationals moving around the county, which isn't a problem in itself. But I'm appealing to the foreign national community. If you saw any or all of those 3 vehicles this morning at 7 or before, 6:30 in the morning, can you please phone Lincolnshire Police and we'll piece together their movements.
Last year on Valentine's Day, 6 migrant workers died in the worst crash ever seen on Lincolnshire's roads. A campaign has now been launched to encourage safer driving.
What we would say to the employers within Lincolnshire who have foreign nationals or migrant workers within the workplace is to contact us, work with us in partnership to raise awareness of what the issues are within Lincolnshire. As I say, Lincolnshire is unique because it's predominantly rural roads, and we want people to feel safe when they're on the roads throughout the county.
Tonight, investigations are continuing into the crash. Barrett Patel for Central News.
Families of 2 men who died in a sailing accident this week have been remembering their strong friendship and their love of life. Michael Palmer and Mick Hall were both from North Nottinghamshire. The men, who were in their 60s, drowned in the River Deben on the Suffolk coast near Felixstowe as they made their way out to their yacht. It's believed one man fell from the dinghy and the other collapsed trying to save him from the freezing waters. Alison Mackenzie reports.
It's an idyllic spot on the Suffolk coast, but the waters can be treacherous. Mike Palmer and Mick Hall were both experienced sailors who travelled regularly here to spend time on their boats. But on that night, something went wrong as they were trying to get from a dinghy to their yacht moored upstream. Their bodies were recovered by the harbour master. This was their local at Fiskerton in North Nottinghamshire. Today, the families of both men gathered to remember much-loved friends.
We quite lovingly, very lovingly, call them hinge and bracket because they would just like banter and bicker between themselves. They were like an old married couple. They were absolutely adorable, but both men hugely admired, hugely loved.
One of Mick Hall's 4 daughters is the former soap star Tina Hall.
it feels as though it's Dad's strength surrounding all of us. My dad our dad used to have such big arms and hands, didn't he? So strong. And he's installed that in all of us, hasn't he? All his babies. And we just feel that warmth from everyone and support, and it's just great. He'd be so proud.
Friends united in grief. Alison Mackenzie in Fiskerton for Central News.
Mountain rescue teams have called off a search of Foxton Locks in Leicestershire. They were called in at 11 o'clock this morning to help police find a woman who's been missing from the Market Harbour area since Monday. She hasn't been found. A father of 4 from Lincoln has gone on trial accused of murdering a man with a samurai sword. Lincoln Crown Court heard that Thomas Rowe from Coleridge Gardens used a 20-inch sword to chase off an intruder at his home. He later found 3 men, including Carl Taylor and Dale Beach, who it's alleged was stabbed 4 times by Rowe. Beach survived the attack, but Mr. Taylor died. Thomas Rowe denies the charges. Beef and sheep farmers in the East Midlands say they're being forced out of business by low meat prices. Today, the National Farmers Union launched a campaign to try to get supermarkets to pay more money for their produce. Nick Adams, who owns a farm in Derbyshire, says while supermarkets' profits have quadrupled in the last 3 decades, farmers are struggling to make ends meet.
We've had Waitrose and Marks and Spencers give us fixed prices, say that they will contract at a minimum price, and we would like some of the biggest supermarkets to say that they would do the same thing for us. Give us a fixed price. They know what they can sell it for, they know what the processing costs are. They should be able to contract to a minimum price for us, and then we can plan for the future and try and construct a sustainable business.
Well, some sports news now, and another man has been charged in connection with an investigation into alleged financial irregularities at Derby County Football Club. The 52-year-old was today charged with conspiracy to defraud and conspiracy to conceal criminal property. The alleged financial irregularities relate to the takeover of Derby County in October 2003. The investigation, which began last year, is continuing. Now, the X Factor has already produced acts like Leona Lewis, Shane Warth and G4, but could there soon be an East Midlands star in the scene? Children at a school in Leicester were so inspired by the programme, they decided to hold their own version of the competition. Jenny Whipple reports.
Welcome to the X Factor. Simon Cowell might not be here, but the excitement and drama at Moat Community College is just like the real thing.
There's tremendous competition, not just among the kids, but some of the teachers are taking this very, very seriously. They're determined that their form should win.
We started at this school.
Most of our students are Muslim and with a Sunni background, and they haven't traditionally got a tremendous focus on music in their lives, but they've all stuck in here and they're really enjoying the work.
Go East! Go West!
I like picking up the song and like writing it and having like rhythm in it and doing right. It's not a debate that the teachers are great. That's why the dinner ladies let you eat a fish cake.
What I've enjoyed most is writing the song when you're actually writing it.
All the children's hard work has come down to this, a few minutes in front of the judges.
1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome to the game. We all know and we're the best. We don't fear any test. Understand? 1, 2, 3, go, go!
And so our winners are the Extreme Girls from 7.3.
Extreme Girls won't actually win a £1 million recording contract or the chance to be completely forgotten about by this time next year. But they'll certainly have bragging rights at the school for a long time. Jenny Whipple in Leicester for Central News.
Well done.
That fish cake line was inspired, wasn't it? Now let's get the weather forecast. Here's Anna.
Central weather with the BMIBaby.com credit card.
Good evening. Well, I'd just like to thank Chris Lewis for sending in tonight's beautiful autumnal weather picture taken in the grounds of Woollerton Park. Now, if you'd like to send your weather pictures in, the address is centralnewseast@itv.com. Today has been a mostly cloudy day, with the east having had some persistent rain. Now, overnight the cloud will build again, especially over the east, where we will also see some rain showers. Now, temperatures dropping lower than last night with a minimum of 3 Celsius. Well, the rain will be clinging onto the east coast at the beginning of tomorrow, but as well as the rain, the east will see the best of the sunshine during the morning. Then in the afternoon the rain should clear and the rest of us will get some sunny breaks from the cloud. Temperatures though struggling to get to 8 Celsius, so feeling a little on the cool side. If we take a look at the outlook, there is high pressure in charge for the next couple of days. So for Thursday and for Friday it will be dry with bright spells, but I'm afraid it takes a turn for the worse for the weekend, with a cloudy and grey day expected on Saturday, but temperatures not too bad there on Saturday as well. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Central Weather with the BMIBaby.com credit card.
That's it from us. We are back tomorrow morning from 6:30. And don't forget to join us for Central tonight, when we'll be live in Paris on the day the first Eurostar trains run from St Pancras. But until then, from all of us here, have a very good night and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.